All right, so welcome to another episode of Coach's Corner, where we're going to talk all things about human development and helping develop skills and performance. And we have a really great episode today. I'm excited to bring on our guest, Nick Freund. Nick is the founder of a coaching organization for CEOs called Not Another CEO. He's got a lot of content he puts out there on Substack and LinkedIn and other areas, and it's amazing content to read. And I just recently became part of a group, the Coaches CEO Club that Nick had helped start, and it's super exciting. I'm excited to have him here on the show, and excited to participate in CEO Club. And learn a lot from Nick. So, Nick, anything I left out on your introduction, you'd love to share with the group?
No, Dan, that was great. I think what you left out was my appreciation for you having me on the show. So it's great to be here. Great to be here with you. And I think maybe the only other thing is just my background before being a co-founder at Not Another CEO and CEO coaching was I'm a longtime operator and technology founder and executive. And so that journey informs so much of what I do today.
Yeah, and I love that. That journey informs what I do as a CEO coach, right? And thinking about, just coaching in general and coaches that you've had the opportunity to engage with. Those that know what they're doing, it's really important to have that sort of expertise, but being able to package it and to position it in a certain way, I think is, a really critical element. Can you think back, right? It's just, a single coach or maybe even a single incident that made a huge difference in your journey and your path based on exposure through coaching as a youth or as an early entrepreneur or employee, wherever it was, Nick?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so many coaches throughout the course of my life and journey professionally. But if I was going to go all the way back, I played tennis quite a bit growing up.
Cool.
Never was hyper competitive, but I worked for a long period of time with this coach named George Harding, and I got to meet him because he taught at my middle school when I picked up a interest in tennis. And so I worked with him throughout middle school and high school, and he was very influential to my game, both the physical parts of the game as well as the mental parts of the game. And I think one of the most interesting things as I go back and think about that relationship is that his role as a coach also extended beyond the court. And there's a moment I remember, and we'll just get real, like at the very beginning of the podcast, where it was my parents had just gotten divorced. I was 14 years old at the time, and I was very, very upset. And I remember there's this day I like broke down on the tennis court crying as a kid because I was having a difficult time handling the situation. What's remarkable to me about that is one, I felt comfortable with him. The coach, you know, coachee student relationship had gotten to the point where I felt comfortable doing that. And the second thing is that he was then able to coach me effectively outside like my tennis swing. And I think that informs a lot of, as I think about it live, my approach to what I want in a coach today, as well as how I look to coach.
Yeah, I like it. And I think, if I'm listening, it's Dan, if you can build trust, right, in the folks you're working with and let them feel comfortable about being vulnerable, you're going to break through and get a lot further with them. Is that kind of the core component there?
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't mean you're not challenging them or, hard or hold them to high expectations. You do all of those things, but it's a matter of, I think, seeing and coaching the whole person. And when you can do that, you can establish trust. When you can convey and actually show that you truly do care. Um, it goes a really really long way.
Yeah.
And you know I'm sure you are very familiar with like the radical candor framework, but this is some version of that
Yep.
where if you both care personally for somebody, it allows you to challenge them directly in a way
Yep.
that is most effective. But the care can also extend beyond just the challenging. The care can also just be care for the person.
All right. So it brings up a question my staff, the folks behind the scene really wanted me to ask, right? And so they want to know, as a CEO coach, the one who coaches the CEO who coaches everyone else, right? The guy at the top. How do you personally, Nick, stay open to being coached yourself, from your perch, if you will?
Yeah, so I'll say two things. And the first will be a slight pushback or correction to one of the things you just said, which was the guy at the top.
Cool.
And I don't actually I think when you think about what leadership is, it's actually much less about being at the top and commanding others. Like that's what people think leadership is, but really what leadership is an act of service. And so as a CEO, as any type of leader, what is your job? It is to serve all of the people on your team. It is to serve all of your customers. And that is why the responsibility is what it is and why heavy is the head that wears the crown, in my personal opinion. And that's what creates the best leaders, the most motivated leaders, the most inspirational leaders, and quite frankly, people that can coach their team. And so when I think about my role as a coach, I have the unique privilege to serve CEOs and to serve leaders. So that's the first thing I would say, and it's a true privilege to be able to do that. I look to a lot of people. I There are mentors of mine who have been coaches of mine over many chapters of my journey that I look towards from the first innings of my career who knew me when I was 20 years old, to people who coached and mentored me when I was running my own company. I still have that relationship with them today. And then there are, as I've become a CEO coach, there's lots of other folks that I know within my network who are also CEO coaches who have their own experiences, have their own approaches, and I really look towards them as accountability partners. And so when I think about who coaches me today, I think it's actually kind of a personal advisory board of other mentors and coaches that I look for various things, and I'll go to for
Yep.
various things.
Yeah, I love it. The accountability council, if you will, right? And what I love about your answer too, and by the way, I told the team, I said, guys, you're not going to be overly excited about his answer. He's super humble, and it's going to be a simple thing for him to explain to you. And he definitely doesn't view himself at the top. But what you talked about with relationships, right? And going back to earlier, like trust, comfort, vulnerability, you're saying, hey, we maintain those relationships so it's easy to continue to be coached. And I knew you were going to come down from that angle or come in up from that angle, maybe, Nick. So, how about anything early on in your career to help create this mindset that you have? Any blind spots that you either had to grow through or even get coached through early on to really help you keep this mindset that you have about being this servant leader and here to motivate and inspire those around you?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think there were many, many things that I was coached on throughout the course of my career, and they're the classic, maybe more like
Yep.
tactical things around, call it executive presence or how to present or things like that. And I've made like tremendous strides in all humility in that journey, but like there's always further that one can go there. But I think the most like real answer to your question is
Yep.
around my mindset and mentality, and what I would say is somewhat of a shift from a mentality where I was a pretty arrogant younger in my career, to one in which my approach is much more I know what I know and I know what I don't know. And I think if I look back, if I am being real, I am a pretty high intellectually like gifted bandwidth person. Like I've always been very sharp. I was always at the top of my class. I can always see around corners. I can pick up new topics very, very quickly. So like my slope as a person when I was young in my career as a professional was incredibly high. And so that can breed arrogance. It can breed that you can always go and, bust through the next wall, accomplish the next milestone. And it took me a long time to realize just how little I actually knew. And I think so for me, that evolution from I know everything or I can quickly learn everything to then
Right.
realizing that actually the sum of what I don't know is far greater than the sum of what I know. That was the major transition. And honestly, I wish I could have been coached to understand that. A lot of that was just through the trials and tribulations of being an entrepreneur.
That's awesome. Yeah, when we started SymTrain and you asked me, hey, Dan, on the entrepreneurial scale, where do you fit? I'd say probably a seven was my answer back then. And then after the last 8 years of running SymTrain, I realized I was closer to a two, maybe even a one, Nick, at that moment in time. It was a big lesson in humility and all the keys of reality of everything you have to know, right? So going from arrogant to highly confident, right? And taking that leap through bravado and then really looking at reality along the way. What great advice for everyone. I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah,
Hey,
of
one of
course.
the things, yeah, you mentioned this accountability council, right? And I'm kind of coining it that for you, but I love the concept, right, of these folks that are around me to help hold me accountable. And when you're coaching a team, accountability is huge, right? But how do you drive a culture in a business, right? A culture of accountability without creating fear?
Yeah, great question. Look, I think people on your team will follow your example. And so the way you present yourself day to day with your team in meetings, asynchronously, if you have an office, walking around the halls of your office, that is going to tell people whether they should trust you, whether they
Mm,
should fear you, whether they should respect you. And so the how you are and how you act day to day is going to matter far more than what you say. And so leadership isn't, you know, celebrating everyone with a bonus at the end of the year when you crushed it and you've been screening with them the entire time, you know?
right.
Um, I mean, you can do that. That's not how you build like the most high functioning organization. And I think holding others accountable starts with holding yourself accountable. Um, and if you can hold yourself accountable, in your day-to-day actions and publicly in front of the team, it allows you to hold others accountable. And then when you're holding others accountable, you have walked the walk. Now you can talk the talk, and it gives you the like social proof to go and do it in a way that is uplifting and not in a way that seems like you're coming down on people and causing fear. So of course there's like a million little tricks, but I think the most important thing is you walk the walk and you personally hold yourself accountable in front of the entire team.
Love it. Yeah. I've gotten a lot of advice over the years. Don't be too hard on yourself and put yourself down in front of everyone. But definitely hold yourself accountable. And I love what you're adding to that, which is, be present. First off, be present. And then how do you behave, right? Lead by example, but through your behaviors. I love that. And
Yeah. I
and
mean, an
so
example, a
yeah,
tactical example there would be you're presenting the uh, performance versus goals at the company meeting.
Yep.
and you missed the number. Are you going to pretend in front of the company that you missed the number? No, you have to tell everyone that you've missed the number. But the story behind that is what matters. Uh, and little things like you missed the number is very different than we missed the number.
Yep.
And then the story, the number and why, and your part in it, and everyone's collective part in it. Like that's what holding yourself accountable means. And by extension of that, you're holding everyone else accountable. And it's being present in that moment.
Yeah. And Nick, I think you've answered this quite a few times, but we can by asking it one more, we can maybe take it down a level to actual
Mhm.
actions or activities that CEOs maybe or executive teams need to take. But what I'm curious about are the habits, right? Those habits that define the most high performing executive teams and therefore high performing companies. What habits are they, and how can they coach themselves, to these habits, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, so this will start off as sounding like a non-answer answer, but like stick with me. So look, I
Yep.
think every executive team, every leadership team is going to have its own culture, right? And so like what works for one is not going to work for the other. That's a reflective normally, that is a reflection normally of the person who's leading that executive team. But I am much less of the school that there's like a one size all like way of operating. Um, and look, I think there are best practices for sure around, as an example, your operating cadence as an organization, right? Like there are things that you need to
Yep.
do. You need to run annual planning, right? You should be
Yep.
doing quarterly planning. You should ideally be doing some type of quarterly offsite session and quarterly planning session with your executive leadership team. And then there should be mechanisms for waterfalling that down across your entire organization, at the department, to the team, to the individual like contributor level. So those are things that you should, especially as you scale, you should have mechanisms around, and we could go on and on and on about all the different blocking and tackling of how you run a team. But I think uh, when you're looking at the guts of a high functioning culture within a leadership team, it's normally going to boil down to some level of there's a high level of trust, there's a high level of accountability, and there is a high level of willingness and acceptability to challenge each other, to push each other, to be willing to be pushed, to be vulnerable when you don't have the answer. Um, and it's the debate, the push and pull that matters quite a bit. And so I think trust is what unlocks it. Accountability is what shines a light on what's working versus what's not working. Measurement
Yep.
is part of that. But then it's the healthy debate and push and pull that ultimately matters and allows you to make all of the changes that you naturally need to make when you're running a business.
Cool. That's awesome. And so one of the things, as you're talking about, all these executive, team members, right? They, hey, be vulnerable with each other, right? Make sure you inspire trust, right? Make sure you have a certain level of accountability. It reminds me of a show I was watching, and it was about Bo Jackson, right? And arguably one of the best athletes ever, not even just one of the best football or baseball athletes ever. And they were interviewing his coach, his baseball coach at Auburn, and basically he said, "Look, I'm not going to develop Bo Jackson as a talent. It's just not going to happen, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to challenge Bo." Right. And you talk about pushing back. How do you challenge senior leaders while still empowering them at the same time, Nick?
Great question. And I'll start with like Bo Jackson might actually just be the best athlete, like bar none of all time.
Right. I totally
Like
agree.
I don't know if they're you just watch some of the highlights like that highlight
Yes.
of him like running along the wall in the outfield. I mean, I'm sorry, like you haven't seen anything else like that. To directly answer your question, how do you how do you challenge kind of how do you challenge people, get the best out of them? Um, Look, I think younger people, less experienced professionals often think that to impress others or to make an influence, they need to talk the most and to dominate a room.
Right.
You need to present your ideas, you need to get them out there, you need to convince other people of these things. And actually, what drives real change is often just the like brutally honest, like probing, like question that just calls somebody out on something and asks them to explain it. Uh, and it's not even that hard to do a lot of the time. And so, like with a coaching client of mine, they may be explaining something that they might be proud of. And just again, this starts with like, there's a level of trust, right? But
Right.
it's like, honestly, I don't get it. Like, why is that so impressive? That just sounds like your job. Can you explain to me why you're like so happy about this? Um, and I think when your own gut uh, is telling you that something doesn't make sense, someone's bar needs to be raised, they need to think a different way about something. Just asking them that question and forcing them to think through it live in front of you, and to reassess their own assumptions is often the most effective way of coaching and getting them, as Bo said, to the kind of the next level.
Yeah, and it ties back to a lot of things that you talked about already, right? Especially building strong teams, challenging each other, having the trust and respect in each other to be open and honest and vulnerable. And you're testing that out by calling people out in the form of a question, right? I just think that's a great thing to try. I think it's I want to say I was going to say skill, right? But just a tactic. I think it's a great tactic for us all to give a try. Hey, as you think about, different tactics and things folks need to use, right, where do you see this concept of human coaching, talent development? Do you see it remaining irreplaceable, or does it come more of a replaceable concept in a more of an AI driven world, Nick? And I know you
Yeah,
had the AI dinner. I wasn't invited to it, but you had that AI dinner last week, so. All
we didn't talk too much about AI coaching in the AI dinner.
right, cool.
Oh, there was a little of it. Now that so I'll take that back. Look, I think, um, look, I if I knew where everything was headed with AI, I would be a lot richer person than I am. So I definitely have no more of a crystal ball for the future than anyone else. And I think, but I guess here's what I think. I think when we think about the future, there are going to be things that a human is going to be like truly irreplaceable at. As an example, like sitting in the same room with you and showing like empathy. Like you
Yep.
can't get an LLM to do that. Um, uh, Deep challenging with probably context, right? Like right brain type of thinking. Um, uh, and so I think where technology is heading, even coaching, is that the the top of the pyramid, so to speak, on that work is going to get narrower and narrower. And it's going to make true leadership, true coaching, human connection even more important and therefore valuable. And those things will always be irreplaceable. But then there are many, many things that are some version of pattern recognition. So as an example, there's a ton of best practices. We talk about for running a company. We talk about them all the time on the Not Another CEO Substack. We publish an article about some type of best practice every Thursday. So like the best practice that was published this like literally yesterday, the day before we're recording this, was around how to run an effective board meeting. Now, look, there are other formats than the exact format we spoke about in the article, but that's like a pretty tried true and well-tested format. And if you followed it, you're going to run a great board meeting. Um, you don't need me to like regurgitate that to you on a call. Like you could have an agent that could do that. And so I
Yeah.
think those things that are more pattern recognition are increasingly going to be delivered not by humans, but via technology. Um, but as a coach, I'm actually incredibly excited for that future because, again, it allows us to focus as humans on the things that truly humans are good at and which matter the most to other people, and gets a lot of even coaching relationships out of the rote, the basic things. And I think that could apply for being a CEO coach. It could apply for any type of coaching across the spectrum of personal or professional.
Yeah, awesome, Nick. Yeah, it's so funny. I was thinking as you were talking, the first 20 years of being an entrepreneur, I had always told the folks that worked at my companies, if you ever really want to become irreplaceable, you have to become 100% replaceable. That's the key to building scale, right? And that was in the last 5 years. I'm like, nah, I'm having too much fun getting in everyone's way and participating. But I'm still learning. I'm still learning on the journey. But both are definitely important. You mentioned being present, right? And how you behave and how you support with your actions. I think my team enjoys that, right? I think they would love it if I wasn't always there all the time. But yeah, I love that answer. And out of curiosity, right? We typically ask our guests favorite movie, favorite book. But being the CEO coach of coaches. Would you mind sharing two with everyone?
Sorry, two books.
Yeah, maybe
Uh,
two books instead of one. Is that okay?
yeah, no problem. Just like all-time favorite books. No, no prompt on a specific.
No, you
We're not in
go.
the right room.
Yeah, that
I have a whole bookshelf just full of books. So,
and
uh,
you read them all?
yeah, I read all of them. Uh, okay, and I am increasingly back to the analog ways of reading. Sorry, I'm just pontificating on your show. Favorite book? Okay, I'll take it back to the early days of my journey reading Autobiography of Malcolm X, A++ book. If you've not read it, highly recommend reading it, especially if you haven't watched the movie, which is also fantastic. Reasons, I would say, and it's actually related to this question, just the journey that he goes on. It's unbelievable. And his arc as a person is just extraordinary and going from legitimately a criminal to being a leader in the civil rights era, and then even his growth mindset once he became a leader is just fascinating. And so I would highly recommend anyone read that. It's just a fantastic book that
Awesome.
I think should challenge all of us to ask ourselves, how can we always be growing? So I'll start there. Um, and okay, second book. I'll just go with like the whole. This is not like favorites ever, but I'm a big fantasy sci-fi guy as well. So just got through rereading the whole Harry Potter series uh, with uh, with my child, and obviously just like a ton of fun.
Yeah.
But I think things that stick out to me there are, some of the stuff from the hero's journey, selflessness, caring for others, leading from the front. are good things for leaders to take away. Those are the two books, and sorry, some stories on why I named
That's all
them.
right. Yeah.
Um, so movies.
Yeah, one
Uh,
movie's good. Give us one
One
movie.
movie. I'll give you
Yeah.
one. Okay, one movie. Wow. One movie. Incredibly hard. Uh, I
Do you want me
will.
to tell you want me to tell everyone my book story as you think about the movie?
Sure, sure.
All right, so I was guest lecturing this week up at Ohio University at the Shea Sales School. So I had two
Okay.
classes and we were talking. And they said, "Hey, what's your favorite sales book?" And I said, "Ooh, that's a great question." And it's The Mom Test by Rob Fitzpatrick, right? And they're like, "The Mom Test, haven't heard of it." I said, "Because it's not a sales book. It's a product manager book, and he teaches people how to ask questions and how to probe and go deep. And if you guys want to be great sellers, you better learn how to do discovery and really not only ask the questions, but know how to listen and convey. And he'll teach you that in that book, right? So there was a little bit of a spin test for the group and the favorite sales book not being a sales book at all. So anyway, back to you on the movie, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many movies that I could name. The one that popped to my head when you asked me the question is 2001: A Space Odyssey by Stanley Kubrick. Big Kubrick fan. Watched all of his movies in high school with my older brother, and unbelievable cinematography. The space ballet sequences, amazing. And I just say the existential nature, undercurrent of the entire, quite long movie, effectively around evolution and humanity elevating itself to like a next level of consciousness, is just so amazing. And so I would say watch Kubrick, A Space Odyssey if you have not, and I would just say watch everything that guy ever filmed because he is an amazing director.
Kubrick, awesome. We got it. The yeah, Death Race 2000 was what came to mind when you were talking about watching with my older brothers, right? So I think I was 6 years old or five, and it was my first R-rated movie I ever saw. My
Yeah,
two
well,
older brothers.
I
Go ahead.
could have, to your point, I could have picked a lot of Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, which we watched as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah.
So Predator, Commando is a personal favorite for the terrible special effects. You can't beat the original Terminator. So big Arnold Schwarzenegger guy. Growing up as well with my brothers, which I think is a little bit more on the same wavelength of where you and your brothers were.
Yeah, awesome. Nick Freund, awesome conversation. Lots to learn, lots to take in. I usually like summarizing at the end, but there was so much from vulnerability, accountability, being present, everything you shared with us today. I can't wait to go back and listen to this episode, Nick. Thanks for joining us. And I think not another CEO, that's the name of the Substack, right? Is that
Yeah, this is
where we
not
want to go
another
find it?
CEO.substack.com, and go check out the articles if you want. You can subscribe if you want, but a
Do
lot of
it.
good content there for leaders.
There definitely is. Definitely subscribe. Definitely do it. And Nick, thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate you coming by.
Of course, Dan, thank you for having me.
All right. Have a good day. See you,
You too.
everyone.